Today's panel discussion is on the new age of consumerism and mass customization. Joining us today is Kamesh Goyal, Chairman at Digit Insurance. In the business of simplifying insurance, he is also the author of publications including Lots More for Lots Less and Need to Reform Insurance Sector. Prior to this, he worked with Allianz Insurance, holding multiple positions. Our second panelist is Sujay S, the co-founder and CEO of Zwende. Zwende uses technology to enable small makers to convert their potential into a thriving business and offers buyers personalized products, learning and experiences they love. This conversation will be moderated by Vishesh Rajaram, Managing Partner at Speciale Invest. Vishesh has over 10 years of investing experience across enterprise technologies and customer services. He has been entirely actively involved across life cycle of venture capital investing, from deal sourcing, building networks, investing, monitoring and creating value, as well as exit engineering. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to TiECON Chennai 2020. This session is brought to you by NTT Data.
Guys, Kamesh, Sujay, pleasure to be on this panel, and hopefully we'll have an engaging session in getting some of the insights that you guys are seeing. Kamesh, let me start with you. I mean, I'd love to sort of get your perspective on, what's changed in your view of the consumers in the last 2 quarters, given COVID. I think maybe we can hit off with just that to get your perspective on it.
Sure, Vishesh. So I'll maybe just restrict myself more from an insurance perspective than talk in general. I think in insurance, there was definitely, when we look at our corporate clients, there was a need, how do they protect their employees or distributors or even customers who are visiting their premises like banks, to say due to COVID, what kind of insurance and protection or security we can give them. I think that was one thing which definitely came across from a customer. Second thing, I think where I would say as an industry and as a country we could have done much better was in terms of if somebody has COVID symptoms or somebody has been, I would say, diagnosed with COVID, what should they do? Initially, there was a huge amount of confusion whether they should go for quarantine in a hospital or a quarantine in a separate place or at a home quarantine and treatment at hospital. And I think a lot of that caused a huge amount of stress, I would say, to customers. As an insurance company, obviously in times like this when people are a bit uncertain about their future and about their well-being, I think the awareness about the insurance suddenly goes up. So what we also saw that the number of calls which one gets on a daily basis, other than the initial days of March and maybe early April, the number of calls started really going up and people started checking all their insurance policies and if there was a mistake and things like that. So overall, I think for us as Digit and as an insurance industry, despite the lockdown and stuff like that, there was no real slowdown in the business and in the consumer interactions.
Great. And Sujay, over to you. You have a very different business. What have you seen consumer behavior at this time? Are people spending? Are people doing something different? What's been your learning in the last 6 months?
Absolutely. Hi, Kamesh and Vishesh. Great to be on the panel. So we've seen a huge uptake overall in the consumption. And I think there was a brief point where the product purchases had gone down almost to zero. That was the first few weeks of the lockdown. But it's almost been a V-shaped recovery, and we are surpassing all numbers pre-COVID already. So I think in that sense, it's been a great recovery. Just 2-3 points that got validated for Zwende. And literally the way we describe it is, COVID pushed us or fast forwarded us to our future. So I think we had a lot of plans to roll out maybe 6 months later, 9 months later, a year later, which because of COVID we had to do immediately. For example, one thing we do very differently at Zwende is we are not focused primarily on products. So we are about products, learnings, and experiences. So we focus on the core, abilities or creative potential of a maker and offer everything that they can offer. So it's the same maker, the same consumer, but it's beyond products, correct? And so we had offline experiences and workshops and learning, that was already going on offline. Because of COVID, we turned it online. So imagine that the first 3 weeks of complete shutdown, when all other e-commerce companies had to stop their spends, could not, do any sales or supply chain, we were growing 5,000% online because we launched more than 50 online learning workshops for art and craft, different art forms all over India. And, within a 48-hour period, we were online, live and running. So I think what happened to us is the top of the funnel started to grow at rates that, we could not have imagined before COVID, because the consumption pattern for the customer changed, right? More time at home, more well-being, like Kamesh rightly mentioned, people wanted to feel good and they had more time now to add, learning to their, armory. So I think we saw a huge uptake over there, and then, 10 to 15% of them started converting to paid customers the minute everything else opened up. One very important point is the category shifted. It shifted from fashion to home, because now people were at home. They wanted to make their spaces better. They wanted to set up work desks and, organizers and desk accessories. So you could see that trend clearly shifting in terms of product categories. But I think overall, it's been a huge growth period for Zwende. So I think we would not have done this if COVID had not happened. So it's been great for us overall.
Well, that's great to hear that you guys are better than pre-COVID levels. Not everybody has that statement to make. Kamesh, back to you. I've heard people make this statement that the last 6 months has seen more digitization and more push for digitization than it would in the next 5 or 10 years. And you run a company called Digit. So what's your take on that? Have you seen any impact of that in just how business and growth has been, and anything new and different that you've done at Digit in the last 6 months to push this frontier further?
So in our case, Vishesh, since the day we started, though we have offices in more than 150 locations, but our model has been that our entire interaction with customers and our business partners has been fully digital. So nobody really visits us in our offices for any service requirement. So from that perspective, I would say there hasn't really been a change. In fact, I would say that purely from a perspective of interaction, we could actually see that things are going well. Some hiccups here and there, broadband connectivity is bad in some locations for some of our colleagues, or if somebody actually's laptop has got conged off, then there is no way you could actually replace it in the initial days. But I think for us, overall, this has not really been an issue per se. I would say the only thing maybe we realized when we introduced a particular product for COVID health insurance, and this product was conceived and operationally and from a tech perspective, all executed during the first lockdown phase. We actually got almost 20 times the volume since what we expected. So one big learning we had was that despite all this digitization, there is still no substitute for sitting across of various teams and all of us to thrash out the processes, because we got into a bit of a mess and we were really, I would say, challenged to handle the volumes. So I think those 2 weeks were very difficult when we felt that instead of being digital would have been good into being a physical office. But other than that, I think things worked well. On the other hand, I must also add that we are in the business of paying claims. And we also realized when there was a cyclone in Mumbai and also in East, and also some claims which would come, especially in motor vehicles or in damages to factories or shops. that one was not really able to move because there was no economic activity was happening. You could not get anything repaired and things like that. And that was also, I think, emotionally for us and our team, it was a bit difficult that you want to help your customers, but they are also not able to do much. No, you have a damaged wall, it stays like this. Your vehicle is damaged, it will stay as it is. So we also, I think, realized the helplessness that despite wanting to do the best, there is really not much which one could do, especially for these kind of claims.
Kamesh, thanks for that. And Sujay, sort of switching back to you, at your end, what have you guys done differently to sort of reach out to customers, communicate to them in these environments? Anything different from the norm that you want to highlight?
Sure. I think I'll answer that question slightly differently. I think I'll move the focus from customer to maker for a minute, right? Imagine we work with small makers, right? Or artisans, or, so these are typically, for them, work from home is not anything new. For them, work from home was the way they worked even before, right? So it's a completely distributed supply chain, right? So even if one pin code was switched off, you imagine that now Zwende was able to offer a similar product from a different pin code. So the distributed nature of the supply chain really helped, right? And at Zwende, again, going back to your idea of digitization, what we do very differently is with zero inventory or with zero ready inventory required, we are able to have, millions and trillions of SKUs on Zwende because we digitally create those SKUs. So we take a, hand-painted Madhubani artwork in black and white, and we create all the color variations digitally. Right? So imagine what we could do during COVID was to increase the storefront of each of our makers, exponentially larger. So I think the focus during COVID was to increase the diversity, to ensure that, supply chains are taken care of by offering, enough options, or, if something goes into lockdown, correct? So building that second option, third option sort of a thing, and, ensuring that it's not an inventory-led business. So we are telling makers, you now have more time, create more inventory now. Because when markets open up, nobody will have as much inventory as you have, and nobody will have current inventory. For example, we launched a category of masks. So all our makers were suddenly able to flood, Zwende with millions of combinations of masks. And that itself as a category has, kicked off so well. So I think, that digitization, not worrying about holding ready inventory like traditional businesses and then expecting to, distribute and then hope to sell. I think that has helped us very, very well during this phase and allowed us to grow both on the supply and on the demand side.
Interesting. Kamesh, I'm going to switch back a little bit, to talk about a different kind of customer. This is more the internal customers, which is employees and team. Work from home, I mean, it's a coin that has two sides to it. And how are you guys dealing with, having a large team working from home or working in a decentralized setup? Positives and negatives, and how are you thinking of overcoming negatives?
So I think, Vishesh, there were a couple of things. I would say that initially there was a massive amount of insecurity, both in terms of health, well-being, and also in terms of the bad news which was flooding in terms of economy and job cuts and stuff like that. I think we did a call with our team in later part of March itself, last week of March, where we clearly said that we are not really looking at any sort of layoffs. We also in April paid the bonus part. So I think from a job perspective per se, we could, I would say we were fortunately in a position that we could actually take care of these insecurities, and I think that really helped. So that was off. Secondly, I think we were sharing because we had introduced some COVID-related products, and we were really tracking the developments of COVID across the world very closely. So almost every 2-3 days, we will share an update as to what is happening and what could be the implications. So I would say by, I think, end of April 7th, of May, this had stabilized. And then after that, the first time the unlockdown happened, I think that was the time when we decided to take care of all the infrastructure issues that somebody we knew didn't have good broadband there, or somebody didn't had issues, or in terms of laptop, etc. So all the infrastructure related issues were really handled. And then I think we saw people really focused on really working, and I would say most people were sincere and did a good job. I think after maybe 8-9 weeks, then we realized that some people were not very happy from this work from home perspective, because I think all of us are social by nature and want to really interact with colleagues. So I think that piece was missing. And we also started seeing some of our colleagues then started coming back to offices. But typically till now, we have seen that not more than 30% of the people really come to office. But I think some of us, I think, are really itching back to go back to office rather than have this work from home, because to me at least, and to a lot of my colleagues, being in office interacting with colleagues is always much more fun than sitting in front of a screen all the time. I think we spend just too much of our time and life in front of screens, at least. I feel so.
Yeah, I'd second that at my end as well. Sujay, I'm going to shift lanes a little bit and talk about, the age of consumerism, and would love to sort of pick your mind on, the holy grail of each customer getting what they want, or what's otherwise called, mass consumerization or customization. What's your take on that, and what are you doing within your organization? Is that even relevant? And if it is, what are you guys doing about it?
Yeah, so I think our entire focus has always been on the fact that we live in an era where self-expression matters, right? And people are becoming very picky and choosy about, my style, my taste, my way. They don't really want to compromise. So it's quintessentially going back to the Asian Paint tagline of Mera Wala Blue, right? It's not about what you are offering. It is about how you offer it. So our entire philosophy has been that if you make it easy for the customer to get what he or she wants in a way that they want it, there is no reason why they will settle for some other mass product category, right? And so we've built systems and scale in the back end that, for example, takes one hand painted lampshade and builds 4.5 million SKUs for it, correct? But once you build that base, then the recommendation engine has to kick in, because it can't become so overwhelming for the customer, because an average customer is not a designer or anything, right? So you ask for one or two choices, and then your system, your MLAI kicks in, and you're able to recommend the best possible product, correct? So I think that's the focus. Is we truly believe that people want things to match their style and taste. It is very easy to do it with the use of technology, and that is what our focus is. And it has not been used at scale for handcrafted products. And in fact, handcrafted products lend themselves better giving customized, personalized products, because essentially they are made in small quantities, right? So that's how we do it. We modularize the entire backend. So it's almost an assembled at demand sort of a model. It's not something that used to take 7 days to make. Because of technology, prediction, and modularization, we are actually able to offer the same thing in 48 hours or 3 days. And that's what we have cracked for this so-called creative supply chain. And that's how I think we will be able to deliver more to customers, because long tail and diversity matters.
Excellent. I mean, I'm a big fan of modularization and what's otherwise called Lego blocks, that allows you to sort of build what you want in the way you want, or the Mera Wala Blue, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Fantastic. Kamesh, I'm going to switch back into you. I'm a tech investor, and now, the most cliche sector that everybody's looking at is SaaS. One of the big advantages of SaaS is, it's pay as you go, or pay as you use. You guys, I think that resonates a lot with how you guys are thinking about insurance. And any thoughts on that, on how consumers like it, and how you look at building products internally?
Sure. So, Vishesh, I think modularization is really very important. Just to give you a couple of examples, and somebody wants to insure their laptop or mobile, somebody only wants screen damage cover, somebody wants even including water damage or liquid damage, and somebody says, I even want to be insured against theft. And I think modularization has its own logic here. Similarly, I think if you think about health, while a young person might feel that I will not fall ill, but we do know that younger people are more prone to accidents because they drive more two-wheeler or they think they are young, they can be more adventurous. So maybe they should have a higher cover for accident, but maybe a lower cover for illness. So I think modularization and customization has huge value, and we at Digit really believe in doing this. So we try and offer various permutations and combination. I think the challenge it comes is when you try and put this pay-as-you-go to motor insurance. And especially in India, I think it has a lot of limitations. And let me just try and briefly tell you that in India, if you look at 90% of the vehicles are parked on the road. They're not parked inside house garages. And if we talk about these cyclones or floods happening, you could always have a loss due to this, which we saw in April and May. Despite lockdown, I guess hurricanes or cyclones did not really know that the lockdown is going on. A massive damage was caused to vehicles. So similarly, if your vehicle is parked, somebody can always come and hit the vehicle. So there again, a lot of losses, actually almost 30% of the losses happen when the vehicle is actually parked, if we include these losses coming to catastrophic event. Then I think people who drive less and should be paying lesser premium, we already have in India no claim bonus, which goes up to 60%. So if you are actually driving less and having less accidents, you automatically get 60% discount in your premium. So I think if we look at all of this together, then I think the scope for discounts in premium becomes significantly lesser in India, especially because the third-party premiums are anyway fixed. So they are not dependent upon the fact that how much you are really driving. So my sense is pay-as-you-go has not really taken off in a big way in any country. The total market share of pay-as-you-go premium, even in the last 5 years, despite the hype, would be less than 1%. In most countries, the highest probably would be in UK or so. And I think if the investors were pushing less based on the valuations on this, my sense is almost no insurance company would really be talking about pay-as-you-go and stuff like that that much. I think it is coming in more from the talk of investors rather than the talk of the customers.
Interesting. Glad to hear that from you, which is like hearing it from the horse's mouth. Sujay, quick question. How are customers in the West different from the ones here? Are they less loyal, more loyal? And what are you doing to sort of increase retention at your end?
Yeah, so I think one clear trend is, the willingness to pay for better quality products. So I think that's one thing that definitely differentiates customers in the West to customers in India. It also makes, the maker or the brand, let's say Zwende, the platform, be able to offer or invest or bet on, upfront, offering better customer services to a customer in the West, because we know that if you reach the right customer, the willingness to pay for that is much higher. Versus, I think in India, what we need to follow is more like a pricing strategy or a offering strategy that is more penetrative in nature. So you make it easier for them to try you out first, and then they are more forgiving. They will come back and they will try you more, and you keep increasing incrementally the offering that you give them. And I also think that the diversity of requirements from a customer standpoint in India is much higher than it is in the West. I think the aggregate works better in terms of being able to plan something better for the West. versus in India. I think in India that diversity is even more long tail, if I have to describe it. So I think that's something that we have learned. So it's easier to try something out in the Indian market, figure it out, learn fast, improve it, increase the price, again check it, and then take that as an aggregate and launch it to the Western client. So I think that's how our funnel works. And we also have a beautiful freemium model which no other e-commerce company can boast of. But we are able to offer lots of things free because they are digital in nature, right? It's not a physical inventory that needs to be done. So that freemium model allows us to gather these learnings at a much lower cost. And we have a tagline internally that says, like manufacturing companies say, achieve 0 ppm. We have an internal tagline that says achieve 0 CAC. So I think that's what we are targeting.
Fantastic. Kamesh, what's your mantra for higher renewals beyond no clean bonus? What are you guys doing at Digit?
So one, I think is Vishesh, retention of business renewals is hugely important. I think what we have done, I can share a last 12 months experience, because this is, we are just into our third year of business. So last 18 months is when we started really focusing on renewals. So I think one is that you need to have some customer engagement and not really contact them only when the policy is due, in case customer has not really had a claim. Second, I think is that if they had a claim or if they had any other service request, I think they should have been a bit happy. And lastly, I think customers, and rightly so, are always demanding. So just because you got them last year doesn't mean that this year you can charge whatever price you want. I think they will always go and check one or two price. So price-wise also you have to really be fair and competitive. So I think it's a combination of all three things. And in our business, obviously, if a customer has bought it through a distribution partner, then obviously what the partner says also plays a very big role in the retention. So one has to really focus on all the four things.
Lovely. Sujay, one more at you. If you were to do this whole thing once again, are there things you would have done differently? And if yes, what would they be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is tremendous learning that happens, right? And I think it goes back to Kamesh's point, which is when we started off, it was only about reaching customers with, hey, we have something to sell to you, and why don't you buy and why don't you try us out? But I think, like Kamesh said, what we built at Zwende was an engagement layer that makes customers come back to you even when they don't have to buy, right? And that is a huge differentiator. And that's what we call like a freemium model, because now you can come online and just watch a Madhubani painter, do her painting. So, if you have to learn an art, you can come and learn an art. You have free sessions, you have paid sessions, you have so many touch points now for the customer to keep coming back to you and learn more and more and more each time without having to, worry about, spending money. It's like, why would you go to a mall when you don't have to buy? And that's literally the thinking. So I think when they were to be built again, we would start with that. And we would say, let's not try to sell something. Let's first try and engage with our customers, because if you do that right, sales will follow automatically. So I think that is something that definitely has been a tremendous learning. And the interlinkages of the business that get built over time are something you want to start building right from day zero.
Great. Thanks, Sujay. Kamesh, my last one for you. Any advice for budding entrepreneurs looking to build a consumer-facing business?
So I think I'm really too old to really advise young entrepreneurs. Their thought process is different. But I think doing the insurance startup for the second time in the last 20 years, I think one thing which is hugely important is to try and make your offering, which is relevant for whatever customer segment or the business partner segment you are really looking for. We are essentially a partner-driven sort of a model. And we spend a lot of time to really understand their pain points and what their expectations on the products and pricing was. And I think that has played a big role. In the last 2-3 years, especially, I have met a lot of new entrepreneurs who are trying to set up businesses. And a lot of times I feel that instead of focusing on the business only from a customer perspective, they are more focused on what the investors are looking for. And my personal sense is, I think businesses which are more investor focused and less customer focused, they will not do well, because investors change their mind almost on an hourly basis, if not more often. While customers also evolve and their expectations evolve, but I think if I have to put my money on the customers or investors, I'll actually, as an entrepreneur, put my money on what the customer wants or what our business partners want than what the investors want.
Great. So customer being the North Star is a big takeaway and advice. Sujay, any thoughts from you on that?
No, I completely agree with Kamesh, and I wish I'd met him before. That's all I can say. I wish this had happened 2 years back when we were still kicking off Zwende. But yeah, I think it matters what customers want. And I think if you are solving the problem, if you are giving them things they want, everything else will follow, right? And I think like Kamesh is saying, it's easy for us to look at a market size and say, this market size seems smaller, it seems bigger, where are the also rank? And all those key terms that investors tend to use. But I think giving customers what they want is the real key. And I think even at Zwende we have learned that pursuing this line of going after giving customers what they want is really bearing great fruits in the long term. 2 years back, not many people had the perspective, but now even the larger players in these segments are growing tremendously. So without really taking names, it's an industry that is now developing and growing, and so now people are sitting up and taking notice, which is great for a startup like us, or for any entrepreneur for that matter, because you're building something that has need, and everything else will just follow.
Great. Kamesh and Sujay, thank you so much. I think it's been a tremendous learning for me. I think the two big takeaways for me is, give customer what they want, and build a business for the customer. I think those are the two big keywords. And I think unique advantages of trying to be modular in your business, so that you can massively customize the offering to your customers and retain them, with possibly the mantra for what you guys are building. I thank you so much for your time, and I thank TiECON Chennai for putting this panel together. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you so much for such an engaging conversation, spanning everything from insurance to personalized products.